Strike a Chord, music chit-chat with your host, Valentino Kikowski. Welcome to Strike a Chord. Today we have a very special guest, a prominent figure in the jazz world, especially here in Australia, Mr. Jack Pantazis. Welcome, Jack.
Thanks very much, Valentino. It's nice for you to invite me and to come along and have a chat.
It's an absolute pleasure.
It's great couches, man. I love it.
They're
Love
fantastic.
it. Very comfortable. Very homely.
They're a bit awkward when you play guitar, but
I was feeling that when I sat down and thinking, oh, but anyway, I'm sure we can. We'll work something out.
We'll work something out.
Absolutely.
Now, Jack, getting straight into it.
Yeah, wow.
You come from a musical family, right?
Mm-hmm.
Your father, your brother. Mm. What's the inspiration? Is it the family, or is it something that come out from your own sort of journey?
Okay. There's a number of different angles I can answer that question, because when you say what inspires me,
I guess
one aspect has to be when you're growing up, your home life environment. You know, all of us are open and are quite you're a bystander to it. So whether it's a musical situation or there's scientists in the household or whatever, you can't avoid it, right? So and as kids, as you know, and I feel like I'm still a kid, but you sponge all that. So there's no way of avoiding that aspect. I guess from that point of view, we always had music in the home. So my grandfather, my dad's father, played a bit of guitar and sang, and Dad, being a piano player and full-time musician, we always had that. So in some ways, yes. I guess the answer for one side of that question, yes. Did it influence me to become a musician down the track? That's a harder one for me to answer. I guess possibly, only because, again, having an example of a father who worked what he did, playing music to pay bills and put food on the table, but at the same time being very passionate about what he's doing. So that was, a very direct and strong role model that I guess my brother and I couldn't avoid. But I'll tell you an interesting thing. When we wanted to actually make careers out of music, our father was against it.
Really?
Yeah, because he encouraged us to learn. And he took us to our weekly lessons, but not really pushing us to go into it to earn a living, because he knew, even though we're talking, Dad's 83 now, so when Dad came in 62, 63, I mean, a lot of people would probably not be aware of what the working musician's life was back then. It wasn't easy, but there was a lot of work. So there were a lot of musicians who just played to make ends meet, whereas today there are very few in my circle, your circle, that just do it from playing. So I knew from that aspect. I guess in some ways Dad didn't want us to do that, but we rebelled in some ways, and we just went through our directions. And it's interesting, I look back at it, and I didn't have the successful entry into an institution. I came out of high school wanting to go to a certain institution, and I didn't get accepted. And my brother was the same thing, although, and we went down different tracks, but music was always what we loved. And I guess the burning thing for me was, no, I'm going to make this work somehow or another, So I ended up still playing gigs and working, but I ended up working at a music shop, privately.
Which music shop was that?
Bernie's Musicland was the first one I worked for. Teaching Saturday mornings, as an 18-year-old, coming out of high school and got a job teaching. And that for me was, I really enjoyed the teaching. Yeah. And this is another part of my journey, I had a great teacher who taught me guitar. And I think, and it was the only guitar teacher I had. And I used him as my sort of role model to teach people around me, and I still have him like back on my shoulder.
Who was your teacher?
So my teacher was Luciano Dallariva, who unfortunately passed away last year, and I had through the COVID thing. It wasn't COVID; he was ill. But Lou was a self-taught guitar player. but child prodigy classical pianist.
Okay.
So I had an incredible and very fortunate to fall in the lap of that guy because at 11 years of age, you know, I guess because I've been teaching now for 35 years, I think, or close to 40, it's like I meet a lot of young students who don't have that successful first meeting.
Yeah.
And then, you know, when I speak to a lot of students and I say, well, who have you learned from? Oh, I've learned from this person, this person, this person. And there's no connectivity, like they've just jumped for whatever reason. And it could even come down to how well they've gelled and you know, that
Correct.
that thing.
The spark that you have with your teacher sometimes is your start of the journey.
Yeah,
if you don't have
absolutely.
that spark with the teacher, I know I've had a couple overseas, and
it's very interesting.
and then you get the one that is the one,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
Lou, for
So-
instance, and you think you consider yourself lucky because
Very lucky and blessed,
it's-
man.
Yeah,
Very
yeah,
lucky.
because it's hard.
There's a lot of pitfalls, and that's as a teacher, and as you know, most of the time, what you're telling the student is you're making them aware of the pitfall that it may happen.
Yep.
And all your job is to sort of give them tools to make them maybe jump over that or avoid it or go in another direction. I mean, it's all learning. I mean, my process or my journey has been always a learning process because I didn't go for an institution, 3 years doing this and whatever.
Yep.
It was always on the job training and playing that gave me the skills that I needed. But getting back to the teacher thing at the beginning, had I not had someone to give me all the fundamentals from an early age, like reading from a fairly early age to right through, and he introduced me to jazz, but, you know, even though he's from a classical background, I grew up in a family where they had other music, like Dad played a lot of music, different music. It wasn't all jazz. So it was nice to have that sort of potpourri of this, that. And coming from a Greek background, we also had the Greek music. And it's like, wow, you know.
That's where the richness lies too.
Yeah,
you know?
it's the spices, man.
You get a rich background, especially from a musician perspective. We were very similar.
Yeah.
My dad was a musician, and
That's right.
we listened to all sorts of music
Exactly,
at home.
exactly.
And I think that opens up your mind, and sometimes gives you a bit of a dilemma of where you want to go as a kid. You know,
I feel even that today. You know, like, what do I want to do? Like, you know, like I appreciate you saying jazz about, you know, jazz, but I don't play. I play jazz, but it's not. That's not always on my plate.
but that's
you know?
what you're popular for here.
Oh,
You
sorry?
know, that's what you're popular for here.
Well, I think again, it's the pragmaticism of being a working musician.
Yeah,
So
yeah, I
you
get you.
know, it's that. You know,
Yeah.
like so. You know, like I can give you 4 or 5 examples in the last few weeks where there's a gig I do Billy Joel stuff. There's a gig that I do. I filled in for someone in the Pops Orchestra last month, and it was a Sydney act. He's touring at the moment, playing the whole Neil Diamond Hot August Night, and
Okay.
I had to play acoustic guitar in this big orchestra. And I have to be very honest, it's not an album I've heard. That's shocking, isn't it? But I know who Neil Diamond is, and
Of
I've heard
course.
some stuff.
Well,
But
that's
you know
right.
that, and I'm strumming away, and on that, next to the guitar player from Sydney with all that. The synchronicity thing that I do is a jazz rock thing.
Yeah.
It's not jazz, but it's all this fusiony thing.
course.
So you know, but I do funerals, I do parties.
Don't we all?
You know, like that's
course.
it. That's what we.
A working musician, right?
Yeah.
And this is what I want to ask
Yeah.
you: if you didn't get into I'll rephrase it. If you happened to get into that in this institution at the time, do you reckon you'd have been a different player?
Well, you know, I have my thoughts about and being a teacher who teaches at an institution.
Exactly.
You know,
That's what I'm
it's
asking.
it's a very interesting question because I feel it always comes down to the student. You know, institutions, the well balanced ones, have got a great programs. They've got terrific programs.
There are some good programs.
You
out there.
know, I love where I am, you know, and I love what we have. But it comes down to the student and it comes down to the way the teachers provide that information. And it's always a give-take thing, you know, like, for example, you know, if you're giving something to someone of value, then, you know, you probably would like them to go away and think about it, delve into it a little bit because they know it's of value. And then they may come back with something that they've discovered.
Yep.
Now, that is what I feel is a give and take. Now, if you always give, and the student never comes back with anything, not even a simple question. Well, you have to start asking. Well,
Yeah.
What's going on here?
Questions, whether they're interested or not, or whether you're doing
The right
something
thing.
for them or not.
I know, and there's you do play the role of counsellor, psychiatrist to work out. Well,
As a
okay, maybe
teacher,
I'm not getting back. Why? So, and of course, in today's world, there's lots of distractions,
heaps.
and things that pull the student away from why they want to be there. And that's a huge dilemma, in our current culture and society.
Do you find that when you're teaching, do you find that in today's, because you've been teaching for a fair while, today's generation, do you feel that it's more of an instant thing? They want things to happen now?
That's what I mean about
YouTube
value.
and all that.
That's what I mean. They don't know the value. So when you don't know the value, you think you can do it today and tomorrow and you got it. No, it's not that.
No,
so
it's not
there's
exactly.
a loss of that. So
It's a process, right?
To get a good. I was just thinking in the car today, coming in and thinking about what we'll talk about and stuff. And here's an analogy for you, especially us being guitar players, right? Or any stringed instrument. If you compare it to a piano, and folks, if you take the lid off a piano, you'll see the mechanisms, right?
Yep.
You can get anyone to go next to a piano and go ding, anywhere on the range, ding, ding. What comes out? Nice tone.
Yeah.
Huh? Beautiful. You didn't have to work it, just do that. But and excuse me if I been biased about a guitar player.
That's fine.
But you've got to work your mechanisms to get that ding so clear. And things, that is not an overnight thing. And that's part of my struggle is to say, hey man, practice, you've got to work on this stuff because these are your mechanisms. And if you don't work on your mechanisms, well, how do you think you're going to get what you think you're going to get out of the instrument that you listen to?
So it's the perception, right? It is. Like,
It's
I'm listening to this. Oh, how come it's not working? Well, there's always a reason, right?
Yeah, and getting back to that thing about the value, when they don't understand the value of working on something because they think and again, it's a society thing, everything's got a use-by date. A car, 5 years, you've got to change it. Well, hold on. What do you mean 5 years? If you look after the car, that could last you 20 years, right?
Correct.
And there's a great value in that.
Yep.
But that's what I mean. I think, if they want to listen to something on Spotify, they go, boom. And they listen to one thing and they go, yeah, great. Whereas if go back 30, 40 years, you bought an album, you listened to the whole thing, and then you listened to it again
and again.
And you valued the fact that, oh, wow, check this guy, whoever's playing, working from one track to another, and then maybe going down to the next album of theirs. Or
correct.
So
and getting that one riff right and that sound could take months sometimes,
absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
And continue working on it.
Yeah. And playing songs, look, again, I don't want to sort of offend anyone, but really, if you want to teach someone a few chords to play some songs, it's not a problem. You can do that.
Yeah.
But then you've got to start you've got to start thinking, okay, do you want to be a hobbyist, amateur, or do you actually want to be a professional?
Yeah.
Because they're the three areas, right?
Correct.
Great Tommy Tedesco brought that up in many of his books, and he's very between the eyes, Tommy Tedesco, very famous West Coast guitar player, one of the most recorded guitar player in history because he, Hollywood, everything, and he was in the Wrecking Crew, and he taught, and he said, it's three categories. You either you want to be a hobbyist, great, amateur, good, okay, you have to work a bit harder.
Yep.
Professional, well, okay, well, you got to work at it.
All the underlying categories come into that, right?
Everything.
Your arranging, your improv, your accompanying,
and that spectrum moves
correct
accordingly through those three categories.
That's right.
So you can do everything as a hobbyist.
Yep.
But you're sort of just talking about it.
Correct.
You're not really doing anything but just maybe fantasizing about it. Possibly. I don't know. You go, wow, listen to Eric Clapton.
Yep.
But you're still at that hobby level. And there's nothing wrong with it. But, to get to that next level, if you want to get to, that's when you've got to start chipping away.
Yeah. And it's not just the inspiration that's there. As you say, you got to chip away. You got to work.
It's discipline. You know what it's like.
Yeah,
it's discipline. It's organisational skills. It's
planning,
time management. Learning what's your short term, your long term goals, so you're not disappointed when you don't get something. You think, oh, that was short term, but in the end, it was really long term.
Correct.
And looking after your and your health.
Yeah, That's a
you
big
know?
thing. And as a musician, and this is what I've lately been speaking with a lot of musicians about mental health as well,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
with all that's happened in the last couple of years, you know,
Yeah.
musicians that were just doing that on a full-time basis, and speaking to musicians overseas as well.
Yeah.
It's been a main thing.
Yeah.
Keeping healthy, your mindset. You know, your mind needs to be really healthy.
Yeah.
You know,
Spirit, mind,
your spirit,
body,
yeah, exactly.
the whole thing. You know, like the ancient Greeks, you know, being Greek, you know, like it wasn't just them working in the gym, you know, or going to the Olympic Games. I mean, an athlete also worked this. You know, they were very learned people, and it was a whole package. So when you read about these ancient Greeks, I guess, and other cultures, it just wasn't them throwing a disc. There was a lot of other things that went into the gymnasium, because the gymnasium was,
there was a whole strategy.
It was a whole I think the gymnasium meant a lot more than just the gym as we know it today.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
and that's a very important part, because even going out to prepare for a gig, you got to think about things, right? Like, it's not just I'm going to grab my guitar and go. You got to prepare your repertoire. You got to prepare your gear. You got to prepare your transport going there. You know what I mean? There's a lot of things that it's not just up and go.
You know, today in the office at the school I teach, you know, I had a student in there and we were talking about, this person had some dilemmas about the fact that she's been asked to play on about 16 other tunes, come out with recitals and besides herself, and how to tackle that, you know. So a lot of discussion was about organising and also prioritising. You know, like what do you need to work on? I mean, you know, your life is as busy as mine. So if you're going to waste time playing stuff, you know, you're not going to get anything. So you need to be, you know, to the point where you're dissecting what you have in front of you. And I said that all that takes time. You need to learn the pitfalls of that too. But you know, for me, like if I do 3 gigs, like last week, on average at the moment, this month's been very good. Like I'm averaging about 3 gigs a week, and it's sort of like, and they're all different, right? So, but I've sort of conditioned myself, as we're talking about to get to that point where I know I'm planning what to take, what music I have to play, who I have to deal with, what do I have to pack in the car. I do that automatically now, and my role as a teacher, and as you know, is sort of trying to tell the students, yeah, okay, anyone can play the gig, but if you want to keep going with this and you want to make people happy, not only people you play for, the people you work for, then you've got to work on these aspects of your trade, which is turning up on time, you know,
prepared,
everything, all that,
you know.
So, and I said, you know, it's like tying your shoes, you know. I mean, at the moment, someone may be tying your shoes for you, but you know, when you get out in the industry, you got to do that,
of course,
and fluently and well, and then just keep going, you know.
And sometimes you need to educate the people that are possibly in your band that you're playing with as well.
It's a tough one. It's a tough
right?
one.
That's a tough one, because you know you only have so many extra cables that you can give someone, right? Or so many extra people you can fit in your car. You know.
You've touched on a heavy one there, the subject, because you know, like I freelance a lot, so I rock up to a gig and it's not my gig, right? It's someone else's who's organised it. The last 20 years, it's sort of been that way for me, where you know I'm in a number of outfits and I run 3 of my own. But I'm in a number of outfits where I sit back and I learn from who's running it and how they do it. And so, and that thing of, it's sort of like, if you're going to mentor someone in your band, I think it's a hard one.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, did you get yourself in that situation in the first place where you ran a band with people around you who needed that? Were you aware of that, or are you wanting that? I mean, that's a tough one, because if you start mentoring when people don't want to be mentored, and some issues arise.
Yeah,
there's a lot of it's like marriage therapy.
Yeah, I know.
You know,
and I suppose my next question is, do you because you are lecturer at Melbourne Polytechnic, do you instill those sort of habits, those good habits, within the program and into students.
Absolutely.
And that's very important.
You got to do
it.
You got to do it because, as we just said before, anyone can learn a few chords and go and play a song.
Yeah.
But if you're going to do other things in your industry, it's all those things we mentioned before.
It's the holistic
everything
view of it, right?
And from my point of view, we talk about that, but I try and do it by example. But that's the thing.
That's the thing.
That's what I try and do.
That's the best thing you can do.
That's all I try and do. And I don't push what I do. If people ask me what I'm doing, I'll speak to them or whatever. But it's basically, I'll let them find out some things. Because if, again, it comes back to that other thing. If you give, we'll let them find out a few things and ask. Yeah. And if they're going to ask you something, well, great, let's have a chat. They ask, well, how do you do so many gigs, or how do you get organised? But great, good, let's chat. But I really think at a tertiary education, if you're in that situation as a student, it's a serious move.
Yeah,
you've come out of high school, you're in a tertiary education, and you're on a path to a career. Then, if you've got people in front of you who you think are doing it, you're in a really box seat to ask questions. Whereas, again, going back to my background, my box seat thing was see my father.
Yeah, I was in the same
you know what I mean?
seat.
That and working gigs and learning on the gig and seeing good musicians around me and working out where do I fit?
Feeling your way through.
And a lot of mistakes. And today too, lots of mistakes.
That's how you learn. I think the point is there not to make the same mistake numerous amount of times.
Yep.
That's right. With everything, right? Not just music.
Responsibility is very important.
Exactly. Now, I wanted to touch on Melbourne Polytechnic as well.
Yeah? Okay.
You've been there for a while,
Yep.
through different phases.
Yep.
And just wanted to mention that we've currently partnered up with yourself as Yesteryear, the Yesteryear Revival.
Yep.
Helping develop, the musicians as well as, the TV and film sort of sector. And we're doing this sort of program with Yesteryear Revival, internships and everything like that. And we want to, we're in the place where I think it's about helping the people coming out, students coming out and developing them.
Another element,
and it's very, very relevant, especially in this day and age where, we're in this sort of environment and it's very fast and technology and this and that, and I think it's a great thing that we've partnered up and it's I've got a good feeling about it because we're there to help these, they're not only kids, but there are some other older, people that are coming out and they want to develop more,
they're changing careers. They're halfway,
exactly.
They've gone from one career to another.
Yeah, like I know you've had some lawyers and some accountants and
it's amazing. I've been here 31 years, I think now. Yeah. So it's sort of like I'm very privileged and very honoured to do what I do, and lots of different students, and being there for so long, I bump into students who were there 20 years ago.
And, I was one of them.
I know.
Many years ago.
Yeah, and I was just talking to a colleague in the office for a lesson, and that colleague who teaches, I think, was in the same year as you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it's incredible, and I learn from those sort of aspects too, and try and develop what I can for students.
Yeah, and sometimes you can't do it on your own. You need help. You need other people to help because it's a big burden to put on yourself to try and develop or trying to put in programs to develop everyone with everything. It's hard.
You can't be the one-stop thing.
No, you can't. And this is why we've partnered with yourselves and trying to make it easier for these musicians and these future videographers and TV people. To connect, and with this platform here that we're building at the moment, with this year as well, it's the perfect environment. We've got mentors, we've got pro mentors, we've got mentors from yourself, myself. We've got audio mentors like Roland as well. We're looking at getting videographers in and just helping that whole aspect. And with how the music is now, you need exposure, you need to do a video, you need to do this, you need to do that. So they need guidance, which you've been doing for the last 30 odd years.
And still trying to learn, you know, like, you know.
We all.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to use this as a session to plug anything, but I'm releasing a new album.
I was going to ask you about
yeah,
that.
Yeah.
December, right?
Well, I hope so. Yeah. And getting back to that sort of stuff of learning, you know, like the last album was 12 years ago. And I'm thinking, well, I'm trying to get involved with a bit of multimedia, the digital thing and all that, and websites and et cetera, and working, getting it out to people before it. But that's all learning. I mean, I'm not in it to you know, to buy a yacht out of it or anything, but it's more sort of what, but maybe that might be good.
Doing sponsors out there, you know.
Yeah. I might be the next Onassis, you know. Who knows?
Oh, mate.
You know, playing jazz guitar on his yacht in the Mediterranean. But it's all that. It's really a nice journey again. I do remember the last one and loved the process. You know, like from the writing to the recording. The gigs were always in between that, to doing some radio stuff, to, you know, having it played on, you know, whatever, you know. And that's quite exciting. I find it exciting.
Yeah, so, and it is exciting because now there's new technology, there are new things that to learn, and it's not only the playing, right? So, and I suppose that's my next question. Are you recording in a recording studio, or are you laying down the tracks at home, or how
So
are
it's
you
all
doing
done.
your approach?
So it's all done, right? The new album's done.
It's done.
It's all done.
So how did you
it's in my
record it?
hands. I've got it. So
Okay.
I can tell you the process, you know, like it was because I love the live aspect of what we do. I love the interaction. I love the spontaneity. I love the fact that for me, it's a camera capturing a moment.
Okay.
I love that aspect, and I think if we go back to the jazz aspect of where I'm from, it's that, you know, because jazz, for me, it's an organic thing. It's like a now thing. It's not like, let's play a 1950s tune and play it the way it was played. Well, that's fine. I have a lot of respect for that. But, you know, why not take a 50s tune and play it how you feel today? Yeah. But still show respect.
Of course.
And that is an interesting way to bring new things to old. So the process, studio, 4 of us in the studio. Okay. Most of the time, sometimes it's just 2 of us, because the album breaks down just to me playing solo. Yeah. I got a couple of solo tracks it's all original. So a couple of solo things. A tune with, I should say who's on the album, shouldn't I? Of course. So I have the amazing Tony Hicks on saxophones and flutes. Flute, my brother Jerry Pantazis on drums.
Another great musician.
Yeah. What a hack. But anyway, he'll love me for that. Adam Spiegel on double and I think electric bass. And on one tune I wanted percussion, I got Phil Bonotto. Okay. And for this Latin thing, that's on the album. So the album went from, you know, as I said, a solo to duo to, I think it was trio, and then obviously quartet. And then the only thing we overdubbed was Phil playing percussion on the Latin thing. Yep. And I only did a couple of little overdubby sound effects stuff. And I've never used so many guitars in my life on the album. Like I use the Godin, I don't know if that's in the shot, but that Godin there. I use my Strat. I used my first electric guitar ever, which was a Gibson Copy 175. Okay. That my teacher got for me. I still got it. I still use it for gigs. Cool. I use my classical, which is a Kato classical. Yep. Nice guitars. And I also have been playing around for years and years at home a cheapy baritone. Acoustic, but tuned I don't know if you know this, they call it half Nashville tuning. Okay. And so it's a baritone guitar tuned down, I think down a 4th. You can either go down a 4th or a 5th. Yeah. I think I've done it down a 4th. But the Nashville tuning I learned it from Pat Metheny, because he's got a baritone, and I love some of the solo guitar stuff he's done on baritone. But Nashville, I thought, what is that? So what it is, it's the baritone tuned down a 4th, and of course a slightly longer neck. But the 4th and 3rd strings are replaced with a high gauge and tuned up an octave. So when you strum through the guitar, the highest sounding strings are the middle 2.
Oh, okay, cool.
The outside of the sort of the bass and the tenor, but the soprano's in the middle, right?
Yeah.
So that's what and Nashville Tuning I learned. The Nashville guys would take a normal steel string and take the bottom 4 strings off and put one all an octave higher, all plain, and they call that Nashville tuning.
Okay.
Right, and I'm not an expert in all that, but I think it obviously would give an amazing sound. So Matheny does the same thing, but only does half Nashville. So you only take the 3rd and 4th string and put it an octave higher. So I thought I'll try that. So I always had a guitar playing around, just mucking around.
Yeah.
And it's interesting when you're playing solo guitar because your melody's on the middle 2 strings rather than the top, so your voicings are around it. So it's quite an interesting thing. So I use that on one tune, but just more of accompaniment for Tony to play soprano on a tune I wrote.
Did it take a long time to get used to?
The guitar?
Yeah, like that.
I think I'm still using it. I'm still getting used to it.
Still getting used to it.
I'm no expert at it. I can play certain things, obviously. You can play standard voicings, but as soon as you play certain things, you feel comfortable in that.
Yeah.
You really got to think, oh, wow. Because if you play a scale, starting from low going to high, you go... and then you're at the end of the thing. And you go,
that's weird.
Wow, that's weird.
That's weird.
But it's got a beautiful tone, and I've only got just the cheapy type of baritone, but it's set up nicely. Lou, bless his heart, it set it up for me years ago. I thought, so I used all those things on the album, just so for different colours and textures. So there's a couple of one jazzy thing. There's a few fusiony things. There's a Latin thing. There's me playing solid guitar on it. So it's not like my wife said to me, "Is that a jazz album?" I said, "Oh, that's a good question. That's a good question. I don't, it's hard."
That's the thing. Like, and then I know you mentioned before, like it's not only jazz. You delve out to other genres and everything like that, and really, there's a lot of new genres now. Like so. Where do you go? And this is the thing we were saying before. We're still learning, right? We're still discovering. We're still, in that part.
I'll tell you something. For me, and coming back to recording or writing, it's got to be honest. If it's not honest, like what you want, then for me, I'm just talking for me, not for anyone else. I think, well, what are you doing? I have a lot of respect for people who do. You listen to them, you go, oh, that sounds a bit like so-and-so. Maybe they want you to feel that way. I don't know.
You got a point.
And good on you. And I'm not advocating that I have a unique voice. I'm not saying that at all. I don't think I have a unique voice. I think we are a sum of a lot of things.
Yeah.
So you listen to so-and-so, I listen to Paco de Lucia too, like as much as all the flamenco guys do, but I'm not going to be flamenco guy. But I listen to Wes, and some of Wes might come through. But there might be a little spirit of Paco. I think we're a sum of all that. So that honesty thing, and again, folks, I'm not a prolific writer. I don't write like every day. So for me to do an album of originals, it's sort of like some things just take... 2 of the songs were written in 2014. So they were just on the side, because I write everything out. And I just go back to them when I feel like, let's see what's in that, And 2 of the tunes I went, oh, wow, I think I like that.
You go back?
I go back and I go, and I find new things in the stuff as well. But I've got to be honest, it's like, is that really what I want, Or is there an aim out of that? Is it taking me somewhere? And sometimes, 2 of the tracks on this album are revisitations of 2 tracks off my first one. This is my 3rd album. But I just happened that way because I was fooling around with these old tunes and found a couple of new things I liked. I said, well, what the heck? They're my tunes.
Exactly.
I might as well do them again, but different. So, again, the 2003 recording, as opposed to the 2022 recording, there's 2 tracks that I feel if people were to go back and listen to that, they'll go, oh, okay, maybe. So for me, that's an interesting thing. So it's almost like flicking the time across and going, well, and for me, it's just capturing, right? So what happened then was that. What's happening now is that now.
You're in a different phase,
So,
and I actually understand that because I'm actually recording my album now as well,
Good,
and my
good.
last album was 2010.
Good. Yeah, well, there
and
you
this
go.
is my third album as well. It's
There you
not,
go. Well, we're
know,
on the same path, man.
Yeah, so, and it's exciting.
Yeah.
It's scary as well.
Yeah, yeah.
You know how is it going to be? You know, after that long period, you come back and you start recording and you're just taking things out of the vault again in your head.
Yeah.
You know,
My process was different. All the tunes, most of the tunes, not all of them, I continually played them at my gigs. So they weren't sort of, like new. But what I found, which was really good, was that because I'd been putting them in and playing them, by the time it came to recording, I sort of had a firm idea, well, I think I know where it sits.
Okay.
You know what
So
I mean?
that's really good. You
Yeah.
actually you're already comfortable with the pieces as
Yeah.
well, and you know where it's headed, and you know the parts where you might want to change it if you had a chance to record it. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. And because it's live recording, I said to the guys before doing it, I set them up and I said, look, 2 days we're doing like there's 9 tracks in the album. I think 7 of them with the band, right? And I said, we're doing those 7 tracks in 2 days.
Yep.
And all I want us to do is play it a couple of times.
Yep.
Each take, do 2 or 3 takes, go back, listen, make some initial notes, which one we think we can all live with and we're happy with. We'll go with that.
Yep.
And that's it. I didn't want a project that was going to be drawn out. I have to say I did it because my wife was overseas, and I had this time. I thought I had 1 week window while she was overseas. She was over a little bit longer. I thought, great time, I'll do it. So I steamrolled a recording,
Booked it in.
We mixed it. The mixing took a little bit of time. That's fine. That's really cool. The mastering, we got it mastered at a great place in Berlin, where my producer Lee Bradshaw, who's very supportive, and Lee's an amazing musician in his own right, had just done a classical recording of his originals, and it was mastered in Berlin. And I heard, and he said, "Let's see if we can get this place," and it came back great. So and everything else I was really happy with. So
and it's a it's a milestone, like when you do it, and there's a little wins, when you listen to the recording first raw, and you finish the studio session and you think, oh, that's another little milestone.
Yeah,
you hear it mixed down, another little milestone, then you master another milestone, and then all of a sudden the launch comes.
Wow.
And
that's right. Exactly.
It's a great thing. It's a great thing to
it's an achievement. It's like, I've gone through over the finishing line.
Yeah.
But I don't think we ever get through the finishing line.
No, we don't.
Like you mentioned launch, and I'm thinking February at this point to do stuff. And, going to Greece, I'm going to Greece next month, and I just got off the messenger with a musician there. The last time we did some gigs, and I'm lining up to do some gigs again. And so I will put some of this new stuff in the set list. Nothing, too out of the ordinary, but and take CDs over there. And there's a radio station over there that I've been on a number of times that plays jazz and supports musicians. So that part of me I feel like it's another growth aspect. And the launch next year, I'm thinking I want to do a rural launch, which I've already it's on the cards, and one here in Melbourne, possibly. And I was talking again to this colleague today about maybe going some interstate, some of the capital cities, but boy, that's another dynamic, like it's like the cost factor for a start. That's the main thing.
Organisation as well, though.
The organisation is not problem. It's just the cost. Like if you've got a quartet and you're talking about, okay, let's go. Well, okay, so who's paying the flights?
Flights, accommodation,
right? All that. It's all that. The playing and all that's great, but it's like, well, and then this discussion is about grants and how there's a lot of that. So it opens up so many other doors.
It does.
I think it's worthy though, because if you can get a bit of assistance to fly around the country, accommodation and all that, and do what you love, then maybe.
And
You know?
it lessens the burden of that financial thing that's always in your head. You know, if you've got a grant and if you've paid for everything upfront, or
I know.
not paid for everything, but you had the finances for it, it's one less burden that you need to think about. Because if you're going out on your own,
Yeah.
and you're thinking, oh, you know, we do have money for this or enough money for that, you know, it affects your playing. It affects, you know, there's
Absolutely.
Stress,
It's
know?
like, you know, those guys who play, I mean, I don't like comparing what musicians do to sports people, but it's a similar thing, you know, like the focus aspect. You know, like when someone's lining up for a golf shot and they're lining up that hole, and who knows, it maybe that's a $80,000 shot that they're waiting to get in the hole. That's the last thing they're thinking about. But if anything creeps in their head, they've lost focus on their ball.
That's it.
And forget it. If it's like me, you'll be in the rough before you know it, you know. So, but that aspect is really important. Like you know how it is. You're going to play music for people. I don't care where it is. They don't want to know you've had a wreck day.
No.
They don't want to know
and you
this
can't
and this
show
has happened,
that.
and you got to play. And whether it's a paid gig or it's a door gig,
It doesn't matter.
Listen
You're
and
playing.
have fun.
Exactly.
Yeah, and you're entertaining. And it's that hospitality thing that you know. I think we've had that discussion at some point too. You know, like hospitality, man. What does it cost someone just to smile? You know,
Yeah, exactly.
and make someone else feel good.
And that's my thing is you need to provide really good energy. It doesn't matter where you're playing or who you're playing for.
No.
But your presence, your energy needs to make an impact positively to these people.
Absolutely, right? It's a great privilege.
Of course,
you know. So
then the energy comes back.
Yeah.
And you feel even better because
Absolutely.
you're interacting. Your energy is going backwards and forwards. You know,
like I feel every time I take the guitar out of the case to do something, it's like, wow, this is cool. Whether it. You know, again, I get back to Tommy Tedesco because Tommy put it. He goes, "There's a few reasons why you do gigs. I just hope I can remember them. One of them, he says, you do the gig so you can get experience. 2, you do the gig so that you can actually network. Both of these haven't involved money yet. 3, you're doing it because you really love the music. 4, you're doing it because you really love the musicians you're going to work with.
Yeah.
And there's another one. So it's like, wow." So
we haven't hit
check it out,
yet.
man.
We haven't hit money yet.
You know, and then or you take the guitar out because someone's going to pay you a bucket load of cash to do something, even though you don't want to really do the music, but they're going to pay. Well, you know, as a working musician, you go, well, okay, well, I need to pay next week's bill. Maybe I should do it, you know, and do the best you can. And you go home smiling, you know.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You go home smiling, and you're always, as a musician, you're always appreciative of what you've just done.
Oh yeah,
you know?
It's like
it doesn't matter where you've played, what you've just done. You've just played. You've just, you know, your heart's in it. Everything's in it.
Yep.
We all get some gigs that we think, oh, maybe we should have done. We shouldn't have done, or you know, maybe you don't feel. But that's
learning.
a learning.
In the end, it's like
exactly.
I put it back down to the food analogy. So you know, how did you go baking that cake tonight? You know, what sort of icing did you put on that cake tonight? Yeah. Did it flop? Was it a souffle and it just flopped in the oven?
That's
or what?
right.
You're going to cook something when you go to some gig to play, and it's sort of like, well, how much did you cook? What was it really? You know, a great meal that you prepared, and that can be looked at from your own point of view, like how you went, or was there a communal thing?
And that's all part of the analysis. And I used to analyze all my gigs.
Yeah, good.
And it wasn't that good though.
Right.
You know, when you go to that point where it's over analysis and and it's not analysis anymore. You know,
right.
It's like you've delved into some sort of hole or warren, or you know, and you think, oh, you know what, you need to snap out of it because you've got another gig coming.
So could I tell you then? Can I ask you a question?
Go for it.
That thing would that sort of distract your line of thinking because you were transfixed on going, that thing,
yeah, definitely.
So with you, with that, did you find, you know, did it become reality? Like you knew that this was an issue, you had to stop.
Yep,
so,
and I stopped.
Yeah, cold turkey.
Yeah, you could say cold turkey, but the anxiety sort of it brought. I had to change.
See, that's you brought up a big word there.
So the way I dealt with it, I started meditating.
There's a big word. That's right. Good.
It was affecting my playing and also affecting my life outside of the music, right? So I started meditating and I started, changing my way because
Great.
as a musician, you're playing in front of a lot of people.
Yeah.
You don't know who you're playing to, and sometimes that gets to you. As a musician, you think, what if this? What if that? What if they say this? Or what if they say that? You know what I mean?
I'll tell you a good story in a minute, but sorry.
Yeah, and that's basically how I dealt with it and how I'm dealing with it now. And now I'm enjoying it. And now I'm enjoying
you
playing.
have to. Exactly.
It doesn't matter who I'm playing with.
Yeah.
And I've always enjoyed playing with people and with bands.
That's great, Valentin.
Always, but there's always that thing in the back of your mind. How did I do? Was I good enough for this person? Was I good enough for that person?
That's fair.
You know what I mean?
That's your professionalism, tapping on your shoulder and you evaluating what you're doing.
Yeah.
Because in the end, you want to know, you feel responsible.
Yeah.
I'm so fortunate to play so many different people. And when I leave a gig, I sort of say, yeah, okay, good. You did it, you do feel a sense of they've booked you and you have to provide. And how do you know whether you're doing okay? Well, they've asked you again, and they've asked you again and again.
Yep.
And you go, okay, I must be doing something right.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
But that thing of playing in front of, I'll tell you an interesting story. Guitar players will love this. I've been the guitar player for Carousel Candlelight, for Channel 9 for the last 8 years.
Yep.
And, talk about jazz, that ain't jazz, right? So, I do a lot of different styles on that thing. And I won't say who I was backing this particular, it was the rehearsal. And it was I had to play an acoustic. It was just to get the guitar, setting it up after I got counted in, and it was fairly simple. I won't say I was blasé about it, but it was okay. It was open E chords, A chords, a couple of hammer-ons, right? Yeah. Rehearsal. There's 2 days rehearsal, ran the tunes, fantastic, not a problem. Okay, come to the night. And if you know that, I don't blame you if you don't watch it, but, it's live to air. It's probably one of the last live to air gigs. So the orchestra that I'm in the rhythm section, and my brother plays, he's been doing it for a lot longer than me, and you're live in front of the bowl, which is holds, 8,000 people, and then you're live to air around Australia, right? It's live. It's like millions around. So I blocked a lot of that out, right? And plus safety numbers, right? You're in the orchestra.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're not out the front. Although I was at the front for one other once a couple of years back. That's another story, another time. But and it came. We played all this tune, and then came this particular tune, right? And pick up the Martin, because I've got a number of pedals in front of me and 4 or 5 guitars, and plug it in, make sure it's in tune, get the count, and I play. Now this is what we're talking about before. That split second, it came in my mind, Jack, there's millions of people out there, they're all watching you. And I went to get this chord and I fluffed it like you wouldn't believe. And that's what I mean. It's like that was easy. But there you go. I lost focus on that ball just for a split second.
And then everything
and
else
I missed
tumbling.
it and I went into the rough. Now, for me at that moment, I thought the orchestra was going to swallow me up. I listened back to that because I felt very like I can tell you, everyone goes back and listens to the orchestra and just see how the band sounds. And I waited for that moment, and it came and went. Okay, wasn't that bad. But at the time,
You're stressing.
yeah. So talk about the anxiety. But as soon as that happened, and you just got to switch and move on.
Yeah.
And those sort of things for me, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, right?
Of course.
And I think, and again, I'm so thankful for that gig in so many ways, because it is stress, it is pressure, and I've put myself in those sort of gigs over the years. I used to do a lot of fill-ins for a very good Simon Patterson, great guitar player. He very kindly give me the fill-ins for him for theatre. So I did Mamma Mia for him. I did Lion King for him, Wicked for him, going in and out, over a 6-month period. But if you don't know what that means as a fill-in, it means you don't get rehearsals.
That's right.
Right? You go home and you work on the stuff. And then
you're expected to be prepared.
And when Simon rings you and he says, can you do this, this and this date? You go in and you got to play. So the expectation is the conductor who's with this band right? 8 shows a week for 6 months, 8 months, and you go in to play, you've got to actually make it sound like there's
Exactly
no
right.
change.
Seamless.
Within reason, right? So I used to do a lot of that. And
that'll make you stronger.
you know what I mean? And I can tell you many stories of anxiety levels. So that I put myself in that situation, one, because I was asked, and could you do it? I went, yeah, okay. So those sort of things are really, you look at those experiences and go, wow, okay, well, that is the sum of everything to get to, again, where are you today? What are you doing today?
Yeah.
Whether it's teaching and showing students, or what are you doing at that particular moment? I feel that it's very important, and the fact that you mentioned about meditation, you know, and all that, that's very important. That you can sit back, go out, walk, whatever you do, you know, and really relax all aspects of your life.
Yeah.
And I mean, I have to say very openly, I became a Christian the last 8 years, and you know, I get a lot of help from above, and helping me to sort of, not that I was out of control with a lot of things, but it's sort of it's a lovely soothing that things are not in my hands. They're not.
That's right.
They're not in my hands.
Yeah, you become
You know,
very spiritual, and that's, for me, that's happened already, you know, and that thing where things are supposed to happen and stuff like that, and we don't want to probably go into it too much, but there are reasons why things happen, and I think you gotta accept what is there and work with what you have as well, but you also got to be aware.
There's a great book talking about aware. I keep picking up, putting it down. There's a couple of great books. The Inner Game of Music, which is, again, there's a series of books called The Inner Game of Golf, The Inner Game of Tennis. And the same guy who started The Inner Game of Golf got this musician to write Inner Game of Music. It's all about awareness. Most of the book is about awareness in different aspects.
Yep.
And being in sort of, I'll use the word control, but control of what's happening around you.
Yep.
Not to the point of, you know, you do this.
No,
not that. Just being, I think the awareness is the big
awareness.
word.
Exactly.
And, you know, like, most of my learning has been through observation, because, again, getting back to the thing, I didn't go for an institution where I have someone at the top of from the class tell me just this and this, which I do now, which is weird. I would sit back at gigs and watch the leaders, you know, I'll be the youngest in these groups, and watching this person solo, or this person playing, or this person setting up their gear, or this person talking to the venue owner, or this talking to someone who's just come to, you know, to listen. You go, wow, you know, or my father, you know, I started playing gigs with my dad when I was 14 in a restaurant, right? We've had this discussion before. So, you know, I'm playing in a restaurant and Dad's playing piano, and it's like, you know, and I'm watching more than anything. And so those sort of things are really important, to be always, what does that mean now? You know, most people, again, it's the value thing, you know, like you might come across something and not think it much, but as time goes on, you sit back and go, well, wow, look at that.
Yeah,
you know?
it's as we say, you rewind the film back and you think, oh, okay, yeah, this is what I was talking about, or this is what they were talking about, or this is what happened then, you know. And these are things that the awareness, you have to observe. Sometimes at that particular point you don't know, and you just go on about with your life, whatever. But sometimes things come back, and there are some coincidences there and stuff like that. But you know, you learn from those experiences, and you think, all right, next time, you know, maybe I'm going to do this. And but sometimes that next time comes, and you forget about it again. You know?
I think it comes down to how important it is, that thing. Why did it come back?
Yeah.
Getting back to music, like, it's really interesting. COVID was, you know, as we said, is quite a devastating thing for a lot of people. I was at home a lot, like a lot of other people. I was Zooming in for my classes and that. The grace for me, the guitar was with me more than anything. Like, between classes, I could just pick it up and do this. So I started a journal. And a journal of what? A journal of things I couldn't do, and things I wanted to do. And I would make an entry like 1, 2, 3. I'm into the second journal. I've got about 160 entries. in there.
Really?
Yeah, and the variety of things that, for me, I went, Jack, you know about this thing, but you can't do it well. So in it goes, you know. So for me, I'm a visual person, visual learner as well. So I like, if I write it out and I look at it, I think I have more ways of getting into the crux of what it is. So, I mean, you know, simple things, not simple. You know, like I couldn't play my triads in all my inversions. Couldn't play my 7 chords in my inversions. You know, root, okay. First inversion, second, third, and all that. And then I love what we call superimposition. So, you know, or superimposing. You know, you have one chord and you put another chord. So there was a lot of things I hadn't yet discovered, and I'm still discovering. And even last few days, I've come up with another thing, which is all theoretically based. But when you play it, you go, oh, mate, that I've heard that. And all it is a triad on top of a really, you know, another chord. You know, so it's really interesting going back to this is it. Fundamentals, once you've learnt them and you progress and you grow to a level where you go, wow, I'm playing all these amazing chords. And then you go, wow, go back to the fundamentals, scrape a little bit with what you know now and see where and what that can help you with here.
Really taste
and
it.
it's like, mate, it is the most amazing thing, right? I found, you know, like superimposing, like, for example, the musician theorists out there, you know, you're playing an F7 arpeggio, root to 7th, and then you play a B minor triad in second inversion. You know, on top of that, you know, and you go, that sounds great. And so what are you playing? B minor triad, 3 notes. But what are you playing on? Oh, you're playing on an F7 chord. Okay. So, you know, you're joining something
like
that was
Lego
really
blocks.
fundamental. It's like a Meccano set, you know. You know, when you first get a Meccano set, and you think it's fantastic as a 5-year-old.
And
then you get to 12-year-old, you build this thing with a engine, and it's the same Meccano set. You know, it's the same thing, same nuts and bolts, but you built something different. So I find that really... So this journal through the lockdown, full of exercises that I came up with just for my own development, ideas, concepts that I knew about, and write them out, superimposing, and I some of these things stuck with me that I pull out and I keep practicing, you know, and other things I've written there because I know I'm going to forget, because I know they're important, I'll put them down. So, you know,
so when you document things,
it's a document.
You remember it. When you physically do it, as you said, if you're a visual, you know, kind of person, you sit there and you write it out, or you write things down and get absorbed by the brain a bit more, and you remember actually when you were writing it.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah. It's like, I mean, you know, again, you've got to learn how you learn.
Yeah, of course.
Right, and
that changes as you
changes
go,
too, yeah.
You know,
as
throughout your period of your life. You
Absolutely, and your skills help you to change.
Yeah.
You know, so you know you don't want to be flatlining all the time with your learning. You know, or like again, it's the food thing. Like if you think McDonald's is the best burger in the world, good luck to you. It's fantastic, but there's a lot of great hamburgers out that you can grab that will make that line blip a little bit. Right.
That's right.
It's the same thing. If you stay with the same thing all the time. Again, good luck to you. You may love that, but if you explore something like that better burger, it may make everything else. You'll go back and go, wow, okay, that's where it should be, but this is where that should be. And there's again a difference, you know.
Yeah, so, and neither is right or wrong.
No.
You know,
I'm not knocking people eating McDonald's, right?
No, that's right. It's people's perceptions sometimes.
Exactly.
You know, I like this today. Tomorrow, I might like that.
I know. Look, on this new album, because I sat down with my wife and I said, let's listen to it, right? When we first got it. And I said to my wife, I said, there's this track coming up. It's going to be heavy for you, you know? It's all about, you know, and she listened to it. She goes, what was all that?
You want to hear that as well, you know?
Yeah. And I said, well, I didn't get into it musically, but for us, it's a free section of music. Like I said to the guys, you know, you're going to play anything and anything you want in this section.
Yep.
And you know, people can say, oh, it's free jazz. Well, yeah, okay, you can call it free jazz.
Improv.
Improv, free improv. There is form around everything else, but in this section, it's. I said to my wife, get ready for it. mayhem's going to happen. And
mayhem's gonna
happen. It's going to be accidents everywhere. But, good accidents.
Yeah.
But, it's perception.
Yeah.
Perception. So when we play it, because that was all live, and that, again, how do people perceive that? It's like an art going to a gallery, like, I don't know about you, but, it's like, I love going to the galleries and going from, Renaissance art through to, contemporary Picasso and beyond. And it is what it is.
Yep.
The defining features of Renaissance or Baroque, you can see everything. You see an apple.
Yeah.
Whereas you go and see an apple in Picasso's thing,
And
you
it's not-
really got to
hang
use
on,
your
what's
mind,
going on?
right? But it's still the same thing,
Yeah.
right? Still that.
Yeah.
And that's cool. That's great. It's not that one's better than the other, but each has their own skills
Yeah,
and
of course,
colours.
of course.
And music's that way, I
And
feel.
this is the beauty about playing with other musicians.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
So we've never played before. So folks, stick around because we're going to do
coming
it.
soon.
We're going to do it. So that's this is really cool.
Yeah.
And we came from fairly different backgrounds. With musical experiences. But in the end, we're going to do something. We're going to play and see what happens.
Yeah. And on that note, we'd like to wrap it up. Jack, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Oh, my
Thank you
pleasure.
so much for coming on the podcast. It's been really good
Thanks, man.
insight into the mind of Jack Pantazis.
That's scary.
And hopefully we can do it again.
Oh, I hope so too.
You
But
know,
thank you very much for having me.
No,
I
it's
really
been an
appreciate
absolute
it.
pleasure.
Thanks, man.
And I think with what we're doing as well with Yesteryear and everything like that, I think it's a great cause, and
Yeah, it's a great
I think it's going
opportunity.
to be really well received and hopefully help a lot of
Yeah,
musicians
yeah,
as well.
yeah. Great.
I'd like to thank Yesteryear Revival, the production team, and also if you like what you hear, what you see, subscribe, press that button. And also like to thank Cake Eclipse as well for the cakes here. And Jack, once again, thank you
pleasure. My
very
pleasure.
much. And yeah,
Can I plug just a couple of things?
yes, of course, go for it.
If you're interested, I have a website under my
Yes.
name, jackpantazis.com.
We'll put those links on.
You'll put the links on.
Yep.
It'll be over here. So, so the record is the new record will be there. It's called.
And what's the name?
It's called Because of Her.
Okay.
Yeah, it has to do with my wife. It's all her fault, right? It's all her fault.
Okay.
So it's all there.
Fantastic.
And
Looking forward to it.
thank you.
Yeah. Thanks again, Jack.
Pleasure,
Thanks again,
pleasure.
everyone. Yeah, and stay tuned for a bit of a jam. Enjoy.
Cool. Oh,
There we go.
Jim,
All the
mate.
very best, mate.
Thanks. Thank you, man. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thanks, Jack. Hope you enjoyed the Strike a Chord podcast. Be sure to visit valentinoflamenco.com to access more podcast episodes, news, and other projects that I'm currently working on. Thanks for listening and watching.